We've already reached the end of season 2 of the Frasier revival. The short season's only 10 episodes, but at least we get another Christmas episode out of it, keeping that sort of Frasier tradition alive. We will also talk about the season as a whole, but first, let's tackle Father Christmas. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my review for Frasier Season 2, Episode 10 of the reboot, the Christmas episode. It's called Father Christmas, and always enjoy the Frasier Christmas episodes. You know, some of the most heartfelt episodes, and we get a nice dose of humor as well, and this episode certainly keeps that going. You know, Roseanne had the Halloween episodes, Friends had the Thanksgiving episodes, but Frasier always, I think almost every season, had a Christmas episode, and so we're, you know, keeping that tradition alive with these shorter seasons is really, really nice. And like I said in the intro, we'll tackle the season as a whole as well, now that that has wrapped up. But before we do any of that, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are one of my subscribers already, thank you so much for that. If you're not, though, please consider subscribing. Click that notification bell. I don't just do Frasier videos on the channel here. I do a lot of movie and TV reviews as well. So, you know, check out the other stuff on my channel because, of course, the Frasier season is wrapping up, but there's always a lot of stuff going on here on Dan Reviews It. But you could just like this video or comment below as well. That helps the channel out. And I love interacting with you guys about these Frasier episodes. So let me know how this episode grabbed you and how the season as a whole did for you. Personally, and we'll, you know, talk about this more in detail, but personally, I think this is a step up from where we were in season 1, which is nice. So let's get to this specific episode first. It's called Father Christmas. And I will say that while no season 3 announcement has been made yet, Kelsey Grammer has been very vocal in that he would love to continue doing this for years to come, and he would like to see more like a 16 to 18 episode load per season than these 10 episodes. And I agree. I mean, it feels like the season just started, right? And we're already at the end. So I agree. Definitely, you know, if we can't get these 24 episode seasons anymore, which that certainly I think has gone the way of the dodo, but a 16 to 18 episode season would be very, very nice. So Father Christmas, this was directed by Kelsey Grammer. He's done almost half the episodes this season for directing. He did 1, 2, 3, and this is the 4th one out of the 10. So, you know, a lot of directing work for him. And this was written by Bob Daly, who does not have a writing credit yet on Frasier season 1 or 2 of the reboot, but in the late 90s, he was one of the head writers for the original Frasier, and he's gone on to do a lot of other things in the industry, but nice to have him back for a nice Christmas episode. And we have well, I guess I shouldn't say no guest stars because Patricia Heaton continues on her role as Holly from last episode, and we saw her earlier in the season as well. And now Roz, Perry Gilpin, is, you know, essentially a full-fledged cast member. So can't really count either of them as like special guests. But we do have a guest star that's not super famous, but someone that we have been mentioning several times throughout the season, the character of Nora, who is Alan's daughter. She's played here by Rain Bitter, who I was unfamiliar with, but she is a British actress, and she's done a few things over the years. She was in The Rookie on ABC. I don't know if she was like a regular on there. I didn't quite recognize her from that, but that came up in her list of credits. So I am a few seasons behind on The Rookie, I will admit. So she's a part of that. Plus, if she's doing an American accent in The Rookie, I'm not sure that I recognize her anyway, because here she is, you know, doing her native British tongue. But anyway, Christmas is approaching. We start the night before Christmas, so the 23rd, and Frasier talking about his Christmas Eve party, which will, of course, be the next night. He is in the bar with Holly, and she says, oh, you know what? I'm not going to be able to make it. I have to work until 11. Nobody to pick up the slack on that shift. We sort of leave it at that. Find out later that maybe that's not entirely true. But Alan is kind of being a Scrooge about the whole thing, a bit of a humbug, and we learn that the reason is he found out his daughter, Nora, was in town visiting with her child, which is Alan's grandchild, of course, and they have been estranged for a long time. He was not the greatest father growing up. He sort of, you know, abandoned all of his kids to, you know, go explore his education and all of that. And I don't know that they've mentioned other kids in previous episodes. Maybe they have, but in any event, they've sort of focused on the one that doesn't talk to him. But anyway, the rest of the family has kind of forgiven him over the years, and his son is the one who informed him, oh, yeah, Nora's going to be in town, but she unfortunately still doesn't want to see you. She's not answering any of his calls. So he says, Frasier, I'm not sure if I'm even going to make it to your party. I'm not really in the holiday mood. So he goes away, and Frasier, of course, has a plan. Freddie, doesn't take long for Freddie to coax it out of him. He's like, oh, we shouldn't be meddling, right, Dad? It's not our place. Yes, not our place. And then, of course, okay, so what's the plan? And so it's a stakeout, even though Frasier amusingly refuses to call it a stakeout. And he's got 3 separate teams of helpers on board. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh are the different teams. And so they each kind of have their own, little projects going on. David and Eve, and I guess Roz, right, are back at the apartments, building gingerbread houses and everything for the festive nature of the party. And then we have sort of the recon mission with Frasier, Holly, and Olivia to try and find Nora. They found out what hotel she's staying at, trying sort of trap her essentially and get her together with Alan. Meanwhile, Freddie takes Alan out to the bar, so he's there anyway in a different room. And, it's a little bit of a caper for sure. And, obviously falls apart in execution, as just about everything does in terms of Frasier. But it turns out that, yes, it blew up in her face, or in Frasier's face, but he realizes with Freddie's help, that Freddie had sort of a very similar upbringing as Nora did. His dad went all the way across the country from Boston to Seattle when he was the same age as Nora, when Alan kind of abandoned her. And so, yeah, he can relate. So he went back to speak to her and, kind of lay on his knowledge of, look, I can tell you from firsthand experience, being back together with my dad, has been great. And the only person that was, really missing out by me not having him in my life was me. And now that you have a child of your own, wouldn't it be nice if they got to know their grandfather and whatever. So she ends up coming to the party, and all is great. Now, there's a couple of B stories going on. Alan essentially finds out from Holly that she lied to Frasier. She is getting off work before 11, but she felt a bit overwhelmed. We've only, been out a couple of times. What is he doing inviting me to the big, Crane Christmas festivities? And she felt a little overwhelmed by that. But Alan, meddling in his own way, sort of made her realize that, look, Frasier may screw up a lot of things, but he always has his heart in the right place. He's always trying, to get the best of a situation, and he loves with all his heart. And so that was really nice, great speech, very emotional as well. So a couple of emotional moments really in this episode. And then we have sort of the humorous B story, which is Olivia and Frasier exchanging Christmas presents. He sort of hinted that he got her this amazing gift, and so she finds Sigmund Freud's humidor and purchases that on eBay or whatever it is. And then she learns that all he got her was slippers. So she's like, what the hell is this? Whatever. And so she runs up his credit card at the hotel where they're sort of scoping out Nora. And, she does all these spa treatments and whatever to kind of, get her money back or whatever. And then we learn that the slippers were actually just a very, very minor part of Frasier's gift. He was giving her an all expenses paid weekend away or whatever. And he doesn't like the slippers that they provide at the hotel. So he gave her his own. So that's basically all of the plots. There's, some gingerbread house stuff that isn't even really that much of a B or even C story, but sort of the centerpiece for some different jokes going on, I guess. But look, this is a nice closer to the season for sure. I think it encapsulates a lot of the best things that we had during this season, which is some of those emotional notes, some great character development for some of the underutilized or underappreciated characters from season one, and even from the start of season two, like Olivia and David, giving them something a little more to do than just kind of the stock notes that were written for their characters in season one. So it continues on that trend, and it also encapsulates the humor that we've been kind of building to this season. We've had certainly peaks and valleys this season. A couple of those middle episodes were some of the best of the reboot so far. The BB Glazer episode, for example. And then we dipped a healthy amount with the return to Seattle, but then right back up with these last couple episodes. The humor firing on all cylinders. And that's really what I think is a shame about these 10 episode seasons. I mean, look, maybe it works for the single camera shows on streaming. Maybe that makes a little more sense there. But I think for a show like this, where, yes, the plots are going to be a little bit more, sitcom-esque. They're going to be a little bit more broad. We are going to be more joke-oriented than character-focused. A lot of the single camera quote-unquote comedies, on Netflix or whatever, are not really humor based. Yeah, there's some humor in like slice of life stuff, but not in this broad sense, because they're working a little bit more on the characters and the storytelling and the dialogue in shows like that. Whereas this, we have to work in a joke every, 10 seconds or whatever. And so character development, unfortunately, is something that sort of goes by the wayside. And that's why a lot of long-running comedies don't really hit their stride until, seasons 3, 4, 5, when we really get to know the characters well. And I think that is an uphill battle that Frasier has seen with the reboot. Now, look, the original Frasier, it was lightning in a bottle right from the start. The cast gelled immediately, blah, blah, blah. But for this reboot, not only does the cast have to gel, but they're also being compared to the original Frasier cast. And that is, a really an uphill battle sometimes. And I think they found that this season. So I'm getting a little bit off of the topic of this episode and already sort of talking about the season as a whole, right? So let's go back briefly to the episode Father Christmas. I really liked the emotional moments here. I think it led to, some of the greatest moments with emotional heft that we've seen this season. And I did not cry, but I definitely teared up. And I think that's the first time this season that has happened. I think last season it happened with the Lilith episode. I should point out, too, we did not get Lilith this entire season. And I had said this last week, that I thought this would be the first season without Lilith ever on Frasier, but that is not true. Although she was in 12 episodes over 11 seasons on the original run of Frasier, a lot of those were, not a lot, but some of those were two-parters. And so she would appear in 2 episodes in one season and maybe sit out the next one. She actually was not in season 3 or season 6 of the OG Frasier. So this is not indeed the first season without her, but hopefully we get her back. Not only is she Freddie's mom, but I love seeing the Lilith character, and not in an overkill fashion. I think, she can definitely be a little much. I would not want to see her as a regular cast member by any stretch, but to see her once a season, I think, again, would be nice. So hopefully if there is a season 3, we get her back. But in any event, back to the emotional weight of this Alan storyline. It's funny because Alan, as funny as he is, he's probably, my favorite. He's definitely my favorite of all of the updated characters. I like Freddie a lot too, but I think Alan is certainly funnier. And I think he's, carried a lot of these episodes with their humor. However, he is sometimes a little bit one note because of that. Okay, he's lazy, or, he's a bit of a bore or whatever. But having this daughter plotline sort of woven through a couple of different episodes this season. I mean, one of my favorite earlier season emotional moments was when he kind of revealed to Frasier, I think they were in an art gallery or something, that she wasn't talking to him, and that really hurt him, and all of this. And so to see that come full circle in this episode was awesome. It really, I think, gave us or at least me, a new kind of respect for the character. And he had, like I said, he's referred to it a couple of times this season. So it was nice to kind of see that all come to fruition, and by way of a caper. Frasier's great stock in trade. Let's do, some kind of physical comedy, some kind of, he kept not wanting to say stakeout, and, that became a running gag. Just some funny stuff there, and it gave us this great emotional moment. So I really like the writing of this episode. Bob Daly, great to have him back on the Frasier writing staff for sure. So I like that, but also this episode was funny. And speaking of characters that maybe had gotten the short shrift. I think, last episode we saw Olivia shine really, really well, and she's good here too. But I think this was a nice moment for David. Making that gingerbread house overnight, which nobody could do. Frank Lloyd Wright himself couldn't probably do that, but to have him be so laser focused on something, that has sort of been what his character has been doing lately, and it's nice to get him. Somebody in the comments keeps mentioning we need to get David out of Harvard, get him out, get him out, get him out, and I think honestly overall, this season probably has been better than season 1, in part because we spent almost no time at Harvard. In season 1, we saw Frasier teaching a class, and we saw them in their offices a lot, and that was sort of, the fill-in for KACL, I guess, to have it be part of a workplace type comedy, as well as sort of a friends at the bar type comedy. And I mentioned last week that we hadn't seen a lot of the Firehouse this season, and in season 1, there were several episodes that were, focused around, or at least a B story around the Firehouse. Season 2, we didn't get much of that either. And I think both of those are reasons that season 2 does excel. I think Harvard wasn't really giving us a lot of laughs. And I don't think David needs to drop out or anything, but I think the less episodes that revolve around the Harvard goings on, I think are probably the better for it. Now, something like the Yale-Harvard rivalry football game, that was fun because that led us to a classic, Frasier disaster party. So you could have Harvard sort of as the backdrop of something, but, showing Frasier in the class, it wasn't working, So I'm glad that they sort of have dropped that a little bit, scaled that back, and given David a reason to sort of be the way he is out of academia. It's not that funny to see, somebody who's hyper-focused on getting A's all the time, that's not that humorous. But to give him like a project, and we've seen a couple of projects over the course of this season that he's tackled. I think it's helping his character a little bit. And we did see Alice for a moment, played by Kelsey Grammer's daughter. I forget her first name, but her last name is Grammer. And she's back as Roz's daughter Alice. I think she will be more of a fixture if we get a season 3 as well, especially with Roz back in Boston now. Or in Boston. I guess she was never in Boston to begin with, but as a regular in Boston. So, overall, look, let me grade the episode here. Father Christmas, it's another one that is helping this season out and helping it outdo season 1. I leave Father Christmas with an A-. Another very strong episode. Maybe not as funny as some of the recent ones, but definitely from a mixture of humor and emotional heft. I think it worked well. And that is indeed the grade that I'm going to give the season as a whole, A-. Most of the episodes were in that like B+ or higher, A-. Most of the episodes were in that like B+ or higher range. The only one that really was a stinker was that Seattle episode. I think I gave it a C+, and to be honest, I think that might have been generous. Thinking back about that episode, it's one of the worst episodes of Frasier, certainly of the reboot, but even overall, just like the B story was terrible with them, again, back at Harvard. It was a Harvard, B story. And then even the A story, where we're sort of following around this guy, this magician guy that we didn't really know or care about. It was definitely the low point of the season. But other than that episode, all of the back half episodes, starting with the BB Glazer episode, were all sort of in that A to A- range. And that certainly has lifted up this season from, how it started out, well, it started out okay. I think the first couple episodes even I gave B pluses to or something like that. So, but much better start to this season than season 1. And I am so looking forward to hopefully getting a season 3. Let's see where this takes the characters. Hopefully they're kind of learning from some of the mistakes. I think they've already learned a little bit about, let's not have so much at Harvard. Let's not have so much at the firehouse. Let's focus, on the characters and bringing them together. I think bringing Roz back was a stroke that they needed to kind of round out the cast, because I think her presence, and I've talked about this in other videos, I think her presence makes Olivia and Eve more interesting characters as well. Because there's another female, to kind of help be, ladies with. They had that ladies' night episode earlier this season that was a lot of fun. And Olivia is stuffy, but she clearly also has a more silly side, a more playful side. One of you guys in the comments last week mentioned that the turn in her character is akin to Rebecca in Cheers. She started out very straight-laced, business-like, and then, a couple of seasons in, she was just wacky and whatever, and I think that's what they're doing with Olivia. I think that's why last week with the murder mystery was such a fun time. So look, I look forward to season 3 for sure. I hope we get it, but let me know in the comments, how did this episode work for you? How did this season work for you? And go ahead and check out my other videos too while you're at it. If you're not one of my subscribers, please subscribe away. Would love to have you aboard there. All right, other than that, I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching Dan Reviews It.